Okay.
Did Okay, everybody. Let's get settled in. I know I saw Senator McCray a few minutes ago. Okay.
He's in, he's out, he's all over the place.
Got it. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Let's get started. We've only got an hour and a lot of ground to cover. We're going to start where we left off with 414. April's here again for me. Thank you for coming. And I know we had some questions. People were asking some questions along the way. I'll kind of let it open up, unless you have something you want to respond to at this point. Do you anything in particular?
No, nothing specific. I mean, I think some of advocates have reached out directly to people, but.
Okay. All right. So questions that are outstanding for people right now. No questions? We're on climate solutions. So, let me just say, let me just say before we get started, I know there's some question about, with both this bill and the next bill, about the status of the Bay Restoration Fund. There's a piece of paper that was distributed to you. This actually was produced by the Department of the Environment. I know there's been questions about what will get funded, assuming these two bills pass at their current levels. And you can go right down to the bottom and cut to the chase. And note, they very much believe within this act, or within the current language, that after the large systems are funded, which was really the primary purpose of this fund initially, the large treatment facilities, that the minor treatment facilities upgrades, which average about $20 million a year, are to be funded. And that they, as long as they meet the requirement of nitrogen removed, they are eligible and should be funded prior to. So if you go down to the very bottom of the chart, it shows how they have outlined basically how the fund goes. And the last item there is the minor wastewater treatment plants, which leaves $55 million after funding the minors, $55 million. And that includes everything, which would include the Clean Water Commerce Act and this Climate Solutions Now Act. And of course, if they happen to get funded through all this, there would still be $20 million for other activities. So I just wanted to make sure you all had this from the department. Well, Senator Ackers first.
Thank you very much. These are all things that are currently in the pipeline. I have some districts where we still have failing systems that are near tributaries that are not in a system yet. And they're small rural communities who are at a real disadvantage. And with all of the rain that we've had, it's a major issue in Comico. It's a major issue in Dorchester. And I guess my concern is that we are going to take money that was designed essentially for wastewater management of whatever, however you wanted to define that, septic, cesspools, failing systems, upgrades. And from my perspective, we don't have that even established in some of our communities. So I would not want to shortchange a designated fund that then precludes those communities for getting assistance going forward. And that's my biggest concern. I just am not crazy about raiding funds. And so I will make an issue of this. And if somebody wants to walk with me in Dorchester and White Comico, I will take you there. I think it's great to have trees and add trees to this. I wish we just added trees to the existing uses of funds and left it to the discretion of DNR, MDE, whoever has the tree plan, and add some to that. But to take a substantial amount of money and designate it to an alternative use, I have a problem with that. I mean, I had that same problem with the tire recycling fund years ago. And when we created this, we had a lot of debate on the floor on this very issue over the same things, because I was fighting it then and I will continue to deal with it now. So that's my major concern. If there were another way to do it, the only way I think when I've talked to departments and others to make sure that those projects that are already in the pipeline, those projects that are being talked about and thought about at the local level, would be able to have guaranteed funding, we would reframe how we're doing the tree piece, by including it in the acceptable uses for the Bay Fund.
Okay. Senator Roosevelt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm trying to follow the numbers here. So I'm not very up to speed on the Bay Restoration Fund. So the total revenues per year are $140 million, according
Correct.
to this paper. Is that forever, or does that only go through some year?
Well, I mean, it's based on the amount of money that's generated every year. I mean, I don't, I assume.
But it's not sunsetted or something?
I do not believe so. Do we have it's not sunsetted, is it?
I think there might,
No.
not
No.
outright, no. There's, I
Right,
think there might
these
be
are
some
fees.
decrease in a
Yeah,
fee
your
that
Your
it
constituents,
kicks
all
in.
of our constituents pay
Absolutely.
into this, so it's.
That I understand.
As long as it's generated, it
As long
keeps
as people
coming
are
in.
using.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it should grow.
Exactly. I just want to get big pictures.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's number one.
Yep.
So number two is, of that 120 a year, or 140 a year, how much do these two bills intend to spend over how many years? I can't quite figure that out from this piece of paper.
Yeah, it's 25, well, we haven't even gotten to the second bill yet, but it's 25 million. And again, it gets more complicated because the one has already been taking 10 million out. So it's
The
really,
one.
the Clean Water Commerce, the second bill really is just a change from 10 to $20 million. The $15 million is new, and that's new to the Climate Solutions Now.
So these two bills together take an additional 25 million away from the 140.
Except for the fact that 10 was really already coming out of the fund. That was a fund, the Clean Water Commerce sunsetted, and that's why that's coming back up again this year.
So it's been coming out, and it would keep coming out. Is that what you're saying?
Correct, the 10.
The
yeah.
10. That's what that's
Yeah.
what I meant. Oh,
Correct.
okay. So from think of it as a new point of view, it's only a net of 15 out of 140. Am I following the math?
No, it's
I'm sorry.
a net of 25,
Okay. Because the other 10 is on top of the 25.
yes,
That's what I missed. Okay,
Yes.
so it's essentially 25 new coming out of 140.
right.
And
If you look
on-
at the bottom, and if it were to come out, even with both of those as they are, 35 million off, that would mean that there's 20 million still in the fund for the operations of other types of things.
That's undesignated,
Yeah.
basically.
It is undesignated but purposed, right? There's purposes assigned,
Okay. I'm just trying to get the big picture.
right?
So, on the climate change bill, for how many years would the money come out?
10. For 10 years.
For 10 years. So it would sunset at 10 years.
Yes, it terminates June 30th, 2030.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
The
Yep,
other just
Senator-
point of clarification is the way that this law is constructed, no money goes to anything until wastewater treatment plants have been upgraded. So whether or not they're currently in the pipeline, if they get added to the pipeline, those get fully funded first before any money goes to anything else. The issue is some of the stormwater stuff and combined sewer overflow stuff, that gets funded out of this more general leftover 55 million.
Well, how does that affect Senator Eckert's question about her places?
If she's asking specifically if it's wastewater treatment plants, if they get accepted by MDE, they jump the line ahead of everything else because wastewater treatment plants get funded first. And this is both of these bills are only dealing with the wastewater account. There is a separate septics account that is set aside specifically for septic upgrades. Neither of these bills touch the septics account.
Thank you.
If you want to hold for just a second, Senator Edwards, do you want to follow up on that and try to get that clear?
Thank you very much. So, the City of Fruitland, the Washington Suburban Sanitary Commission, and Cumberland projects, all of those are funded first?
If those are wastewater treatment plant upgrades that are getting, upgraded to the best available, the advanced nutrient removal technology, then yes.
Drainage, there's stormwater sewer.
Okay, if it's stormwater sewer, that's different. So it's wastewater treatment plants get upgraded first. Stormwater projects do get funded out of this more general pot.
But these are major initiatives that are already in the queue that could get bumped.
I mean,
Correct?
Depending on how the rest of that money is split.
Yeah, and Senator Edwards may have some more specifics on his area. My understanding is they're at risk to get bumped on this. And that's my concern. We have issues with both in our area, significant issues with both. And that's why it's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up, first of all, I want you to point out in this bill and the other bill where it specifically says that treatment plants get the priority and move up once they're approved. And there's a difference between stormwater and treatment plants, but where does combined sewer overflow fit into? There are some consent orders for that.
Right, so combined sewer overflow are not wastewater treatment plants. Those are treated more like stormwater. Those projects right now, so right now with the rest of this pot of money, anything that's left over after the wastewater treatment plants, there is sort of a prioritization list. If you give me a moment, I can pull it, try to find it. But overall, what the department is sort of looking for when it uses the rest of these funds is how effective is whatever this project that's looking for funding at reducing nutrient loads to the bay. The issue with stormwater projects and combined sewer overflow projects, well, stormwater projects generally are not, in terms of bang for the buck, not very efficient for reducing nutrient loads. Combined sewer overflow projects are actually sort of examined through a entirely different lens. They're examined through sort of a public health lens rather than a nutrient reduction lens because, again, the nutrient reduction payoff isn't that good, but as we all know, combined sewer overflows create all sorts of other health hazards. But the specific language, so I'm looking on page 46 of the reprint or of the original bill for Senate Bill 414. Line 10, after funding any eligible cost identified under item Roman numeral 4.1 and 2 of this paragraph for the transfers required under paragraph 11, and then it goes and lays out. It's that after funding any eligible cost identified, that's the language that directs the money to the wastewater treatment plant upgrades before allowing any money to go to this new climate solutions account. Basically identical language is in the Clean Water Commerce Act bill. And actually, if you look on that same page, line 5, that's the current Clean Water Commerce Act language. Again, it's identical. After funding any eligible costs identified under items Roman numeral 4.1 and 2 of this paragraph. So you have to cross-reference a little bit, but that's the wastewater treatment plant language.
All right, then, on the one you just mentioned, it has 4 million, 6 million, 10 million through 2021.
Right, so that's the Clean Water Commerce Act that we were discussing, so that's about to sunset. So Senator Gazzone's bill would extend that, increase the funding, and put a few more parameters on how that money gets used.
Okay, well, I've talked to the chairman quite a bit on this. He'd probably get tired of me hearing it, but I'll bring it up anyway. I want to make sure, when we passed this, and I heard the chairman's comments, it was when the 67 are done, then the little guys would be eligible. I want to make sure, to the nth degree, that they have a priority. And I'm talking about the treatment plants now, not stormwater and not combined sewer overflow. I did get a list. There really aren't a whole lot, and that would get the priority, because the ones that would get the priority would be the ones that taken the ENR out of their treatment facility. So give me just 1 second, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I don't know where Newark, I'm not sure where that is. Is that on the Eastern Shore? It's completed, it is be completed in 12/21. Preston is another one. Conococheque is another one. It's completed. Preston will be completed. Hancock's got approval for design and moving into construction. Accidents be completed in December of this year. Grantsville's got approval for design, expected to start construction next year. Hampstead to be completed in 12/21. Tylerton completed construction expected to start in July of this year. Oxford, July of this year. In Hagerstown, the upgrade's completed. So we're not talking a lot. Again, Mr. Chairman, I don't want to belabor the point. I just want to, I did get an amendment drafted that would kind of guarantee that these plants would get priority. Now, if you're going to assure me that this wording in this one, which is carried over, I guess, in yours, does that, then I'll keep quiet.
I mean, I believe it does. And I'll ask our analysts too, if whether or not you believe that it's duplicative of what is already in the law.
I would agree with April that this covers it. It cross-references back and requires that the funding first satisfy those items referenced before the funding gets distributed to the new purposes.
And this same wording's in the chairman's bill
Correct.
somewhere? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions on, let's try to get back to just the, if we can, the Climate Solutions Act. Well, yes, sir, Senator Edwards.
Yeah, I asked Matt, he didn't get time yet to check with EE on on the Climate Solutions Act, it deals, a lot of it deals with trees, so forth. Back years ago, time flips by, when I was in the House and Ron Guns was Chairman of Environmental Matters, I'm not sure anybody here was there then.
Can't forget them.
We passed the reforestation bill. And basically, the gist of that was if you cut down trees to do development, et cetera, you had to replace the trees. Or somebody had to replace the trees, not you specifically, but the state or the entity that was doing the construction or the project had to replace the trees. We had an amendment to that that said any counties that had 200,000 acres or more of forest land didn't have to abide by that law. If they went under 200,000, they did. If anybody that was under 200,000 went over 200,000, then they didn't have to. My question is, does this bill in any way affect the reforestation law?
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Eckert.
Yes, I have several projects that are in the pipeline that aren't even in this mix yet. I mean, TRAP, I can name them off. How can I be assured that when they need their funding, they're going to be able to get it?
I mean, I guess the answer is, first, they've got to prove their worthiness as a project, right? Does it actually accomplish?
Yep, they're in the process of that, yeah.
They have to,
We did.
But once they do that, again, going by the chart that the department provided, on an annualized basis, there's still $20 million left for those types of projects. Now remember, this is about bay restoration, right? That's the name of the fund. And I'll get into a little bit this one as we move on to the next bill. I'll give you an idea however we even got into it all. But we've got some deadlines coming up about bay quality, and we're not going to make it unless we take some significant action, and that's what the next bill, and this bill accomplishes some of that too. There's, as we pointed out, value in trees as a infiltration and such, but your point's well taken. I can't sit here though and tell you, because I don't know how much each one of those projects are going to cost. I don't know the design of each one of those projects. I know that there'll be $20 million. I don't know what the department will pick or not pick along the way. So I can't give you that kind of, I don't think anybody can at this point. I'm saying, all I can say is that there is $20 million there on an annual basis, and it certainly could be available for the projects you're talking about. But that's the best, honestly, the best I can give you.
Yeah, thank you. I just get frustrated with this because I have a street where the water, right in the Chuck Tank Bay, they have 3 failing bit ponds, overflowing. It's a mess.
Understood.
And we can barely scramble together the local monies to be able to get the match, to be able to get the sewer line down to that one road. I mean, and, you know, there are lawsuits and everything else that are going to go on because there are high-end property owners down at the end of that street.
No, I don't doubt that. I mean, I know, not a subject I necessarily want to bring up is the desire to do stormwater work a few years ago, and we all know where that went. Some jurisdictions, though, actually raised funds. They raised funds to do the work, and they certainly, took it upon themselves, and it's an expensive endeavor. It's actually one of the most expensive endeavors for the least amount of return. And I actually have some charts that actually just blow my mind in terms of the cost of that stormwater improvements and the very little return we get in terms of nitrogen and phosphorus removed out of the system. So,
With all due respect, these are not stormwater ponds.
oh, what were you referring to? I'm sorry. I thought you said there were ponds filled up.
BIP ponds. So that's They're open ponds where the wastewater that comes out of your house, all of it goes there. So it's sewer.
Oh, open sewer ponds?
Well, it's the kind of treatment that has been used traditionally.
Now,
But yeah, we're trying to do away with that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We want to do
Yeah, that's
away
the
with
point.
that.
I apologize.
That's,
Senator Roosevelt.
I just have a quick question for whoever knows the answer. The scale of projects that you're talking about, Senator Eckert, round numbers, are these $1 million projects or $10 million projects? I have no idea. I'm just curious. Sorry?
It depends on the size of the plant.
Of course.
Some of these, here's one that's $18 million, another one's $9 million, another one's $7 million. These are already
that's the
approved or
treatment.
constructed. Pardon me?
Those are the treatment plants, right?
Yeah, these are
Those are
treatment
that list, but how about Senator Eckert's list? Do you have
Well,
a
that's
sense
a
of how?
treatment plant too. We got a big one in Garrett County
Okay,
where it's
all
a
right.
big,
I just want to get a sense of
but
scale.
it's treated before it goes in.
I got you.
Or before it goes out of it, one or the other.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Senator Corrigan.
Thank you. In regards to with the funding, where we're saying there's going to be the, roughly was it $20 million, I guess would still be left. Historically, has there been additional revenues that have been available, or like how has the fund, without knowing the history of the fund, been managed in the past? Has there been money that's been kind of left over? Was that the idea of tapping into this, or have they historically been tapped out, or trying to get an idea of, what potentially will be left out or not left out based on historical information?
Yeah, well, do either of our analysts have that available?
I don't have specifics, and some of if you have some of the people from the Bay Commission on the line, they might be able to answer that. I will say, in general, I think all of the major wastewater treatment plants have been upgraded. So the big drain on the fund in the past has been the wastewater treatment plant upgrades. And as those are nearing completion, it is opening up more funding for other things like stormwater projects and like the projects proposed in both of these bills. So that's my kind of general understanding, but
Yeah,
again, I don't have
I think it's
specifics.
used every year, but can we tap into these guys? So on, I think on there, both Mark Hoffman and Ann Swanson are on. Both are with the Chesapeake Bay Commission. Mark Hoffman is the Maryland director. Ann Swanson is the head of the executive director for the whole commission, which is the multi-state commission. Do either of you have a sense of this question?
I'm the numbers guy. Again, for the record, my name is Mark Hoffman. I'm the Maryland director of the Chesapeake Bay Commission. There are more applications for projects than funding is available. MDE does competitive solicitation each year for funding, and they use the type of project, cost effectiveness. There's a criteria in current statute which they allocate those funds. So there are more, there really is no fund balance per se. I mean, there is some carryover and they have to deal with cash flow issues. But there are a lot of, there's a lot of competition out there for these dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Edwards. Didn't mean to, right? Okay. All right. Any more questions on the climate bill? Okay. All right. Is there a motion? Move favorable. Second. All right. So this is on the climate bill as presented. What's that? Yes. Did he just run out? Senator McCray? Oh, okay. Okay. So on the bill, all those in favor, hands up. Okay, so then, all those opposed? So 4 opposed. Okay. All right. Now let's move on to the next bill, the Clean
Bill
Water
119?
Commerce.
All right. So Senate Bill 119, this is the Clean Water Commerce Act of 2021. The bill reauthorizes and modifies the Clean Water Commerce Act through June 30th, 2030, and requires the Maryland Department of the Environment to transfer $20 million annually from the Bay Restoration Fund wastewater account to the Clean Water Commerce account, a new sub-account established by the bill. The account must be used to purchase environmental outcomes to help the state achieve the Chesapeake Bay total maximum daily load. The bill establishes requirements for the provision and verification of environmental outcomes, among other things. The department may adopt implementing regulations. The amendments that you should have from the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee, add a representative from the environmental justice community to the Bay Restoration Fund Advisory Committee. That's on page 6 of the reprint. Focus environmental outcomes on nitrogen reductions and treat phosphorus and sediment reductions as co-benefits. That's on page 7. Include afforestation and reforestation in the definition of non-agricultural landscape restoration practices. That's on page 7. For the agricultural set-aside in the bill, so the way this account works is it sort of has 3 kind of set-asides, one of them for agriculture, one of them for environmental justice provisions, and another one for, I'm blanking, sorry. From non-agricultural landscape restoration projects. So the amendment would include afforestation, reforestation, and the definition of non-agricultural landscape projects. And for the agricultural set-aside, make fixed natural filter and ditch management projects the priority. Those are more permanent projects. For the environmental justice set-aside, it would specifically mention stormwater and green infrastructure projects as eligible projects. For the non-agricultural set-aside, it would specifically mention consideration of upstream conditions. That's on page 9. It would require all projects to have an expected beneficial life of 10 years. It would allow for projects to include components from all 3 set-asides. That's on page 9 also. It would change the information to be included with each proposal, such as details on co-benefits and outside funding. That's on page 10. It would expand co-benefits to include climate mitigation. That's also on page 10. It would encourage third-party, non-public funding to achieve project goals. Also on page 10. It would allow the Maryland Department of the Environment to use an existing registry for public notice. That's on page 12. And finally, it would require an evaluation of the set-aside percentages as part of a 2025 annual report. That's on page 13.
Okay, so so the idea behind this actually came up a couple years ago. As you may know, I serve as the chair of the Chesapeake Bay Commission Maryland delegation, and Senator Elforth also serves on that commission. But a couple years ago, we were presented with the Phase 3 WIP, the Watershed Improvement Plan, and we, this is the basis of how we are trying to get the bay clean, and we have to go through these processes and come up with these plans because we're under a court order. A lawsuit that came up some years ago regarding TMDL. For those of you who don't know what TMDL is, the total maximum daily load, which is just the amount of gunk, if you will, that we allow to be in our water and still be considered reasonably healthy. And so we're trying to get to that with the bay. That's what we're fighting for constantly in terms of bay water quality, and usually those things are determined in nitrogen and phosphorus. So looking at the WIP a couple years ago, notice that each of the things that we can do, each of the practices, whether it's stormwater or agricultural, best management practices, doesn't matter. Each of them you can cost out, and you can then determine how efficient they are in removing nitrogen in particular from the bay. And it turns out that this Bay Restoration Fund and all the things that we do a lot of different things. Some of them are efficient and some of them aren't efficient at all. And we have a requirement with the lawsuit now by 2025 to reduce the amount of gunk, if you will, by 6 million more pounds per year of nitrogen. And that, to accomplish that, it occurred to me that we should be, to the degree where possible, figure out ways to do it in the most efficient way. We got a couple years, and we might as well use the thoughtfulness, the science of what we know is possible out there. So that's what this bill does. Through the process, and we had everybody involved in a work group over the interim, all the interested parties that you can imagine, the agricultural community, environmental community, everybody putting their 2 cents in. And at the end of the day, we got to a place where everybody could come to an agreement. And that's where we are today with this bill. So part of the sort of compromises along the way included that distribution of funds. Again, let me restate again, it is $20 million. It's not completely new as a program, because the program has existed for the last couple of years, and it had peaked at $10 million a year, and now we're effectively doubling it to 20. But we were able to work with the groups, compromise, and bring in some good stuff. And one of the things that I think in particular, I think may be of interest to you, Senator Eckert, is that one of the set-asides is for environmental justice, for communities that have been traditionally disadvantaged for whatever reason, economically largely. So even though the amount of the total fund, I guess, for sort of free use is being reduced, there's even within this piece of legislation a set-aside that could theoretically help the kind of communities you're talking about, assuming they fall in that. And we had a little discussion about that before, and I think that may be the case. So, but that's generally how we got here. Any questions? Senator Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, you said it's in here. Can you tell me where the wording is that I asked about on 414? About the priorities for the wastewater treatment plants?
So it's on page 5 of the bill. And again, this is existing language that's in the law, line 7. After funding any eligible cost identified under item Roman numeral 4, 1, and 2 of this paragraph for the transfer into the, then it becomes the Clean Water Commerce account.
Okay, and another quick question, because you went through this rather quickly. You did mention something in there about trees. Is there anything in this bill that would impact the reforestation law?
Again, no, not directly.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, who sued the state?
It was, I'm trying to remember how it all came down. There was there were a number of environmental groups that sued EPA for failure to enforce the Clean Water, the Clean Water Act, the Federal Clean Water Act. It took many years. It started, I don't even know when it started, but as some of you know, I was actually part of an executive director of an environmental group back in the 90s, and it was going on then. After I left there, it took many years later. I don't even remember the year that actually ended, the suit ended. But it was all trying to figure out what technically made sense, right? You can only put a glass of water, you put a little drop of oil in it, it may not make it bad. You put a teaspoon in, it becomes a problem. And it's the same thing with the bay. It's how much stuff could you put in before it actually became a problem to the wildlife, to the sustainability. And they had to figure that out. And they figured it out from a technical standpoint and then said, okay, now go figure out how to fix it. And that's what this has all been about for a number of years, and that's what these whips are about. The plans for figuring out how to fix that problem so that we eventually get the bay in a better place.
I'm not questioning that. I just wondered, so they sued EPA, and EPA is pressuring us somehow, restricting money or whatever if we don't.
Again, I don't remember.
something.
I can't say I followed it all the way to the conclusion because I didn't. It was years after I actually got out of the business, if you will. But that's essentially what happened. I don't know. Maybe one of the analysts knows exactly what happened with that lawsuit. But I actually could probably get it. If you really want to know, I can get the people.
No, that's fine. It is in court evidently, and we've been sued. Whatever. I just add a little comment here. I think this bill versus the other is a more appropriate use of taking money out of the Bay Restoration Fund because it is totally mainly related to that versus the other one. I'll just end that with that comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Senator Zucker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I was looking at the committee testimony. It looks like there was no opposition to this bill. So I just wanted to, in particular, thank you, Mr. Chairman, because it looks like a constituency that's very important to me, the Farm Bureau, came out in support of this. So thank you for taking care of the ag community.
You bet. Senator Solling.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just reading on page 7, there would say there's a 10-year plan, but also it says on page 13, it says not exceeding 20 years for, I guess, the project or practice. Is there a reason why we have that there? Because, I mean, maybe we run into other complications or other things that we need to look into?
The analysts want to give a crack at it. I can make I think a reasonable guess at it.
Sorry, what was the 20-year?
Yeah, on page 13.
Page 13.
13 at the bottom. 11 if you're don't have the same versions we do.
Oh.
It says right there.
Line 25.
Line 23, 4, and 5. You used to say 15, but now it says 20.
I don't know.
So this is about the contract of any particular project.
Right.
What was referred to earlier was how the lifespan of the program. So in other words, it could have been entered into and contracted, and the contract for the project would last longer, but the program itself still is within the 10-year time frame. Does that make sense?
Project or practice, right, for that.
Yeah, I'll clarify. Sorry, I do.
Right.
So the 10-year on page 7 is a floor. So basically, we want to make sure that for non-agricultural landscape restoration projects, that project will be kind of in the ground and removing nutrients for at least 10 years. Page 11 or page 13, I think, in your reprint, that has to do for these sort of pay-for-success contracts. So if the contract is going to if you're going to have sort of payments, sort of ongoing payments under this contract, we just want to put sort of a cap on that, so it's not this sort of indefinite contract that the state is making payments on till the end of time. So the contract, no matter how long that project is actually going to stay in the ground, we're only going to provide payments under it for 20 years.
It won't exceed that. I got you. Okay. I mean, the bays are gem, and I mean, we need to take good care of it, and I fully understand that. I just didn't understand that part. Thank you.
Senator Alford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, I remember the moment where this kind of came to you 2 years ago. And colleagues, this is about a return on investment of taxpayer money. I think this is probably a very conservative tack when it comes to the Bay Restoration Fund money, because we're talking about projects that have the highest ROI on reducing phosphorus, nitrogen, and sediment into our bay. And so, again, just thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just expanding a program that came about from, it was actually the governor's program originally. And this is just improving on that work after a number of years of trial and error and seeing what worked and what didn't. And it's about ROI. So thank you.
Senator Zucker.
Move favorable.
Any further discussion? All is in favor? And unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. All right. And thank you, April. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's try to, 10 minutes. Well, we probably got to walk over, don't we? Wow. All right. I was going to say, there's got to be something what here we could do. And there probably is, but let's call it, yeah, Senate.
I was just saying, Senate Bill 5 was really easy.
Real easy? You think it's really easy? Really?
I do.
All right, we'll do one. Let's do it quick. If it takes more than a minute and a half, we'll have to come back to it. Who's got this?
Is that Senate Bill 5?
Yep. Yes.
So Senate Bill 5, you all are secondary, finance is primary. This bill would require implicit bias training for applicants when they're renewing licenses issued by a health occupations board. There is also a mandated minimal funding amount for the Office of Minority Health and Health Disparities. There were 3 amendments from finance. I believe you should have a reprint on your desk. The first was just in the annual, in the reporting requirements for the Office of Health, Minority Health and Health Disparities, adding dementia to an existing report on racial and ethnic disparities in morbidity and mortality rates. Also adding a requirement to publish data every 6 months. The piece that's relevant to B&T is on the bottom of page 2, line 32. The funding mandate, the number you see here, the 1788314, that's the fiscal 22 allowance, or the amendment changes that to 0.012% of the total funds for the department, not 1.2%. That should equate to the current dollar figure for fiscal 22, and then over time that would increase as the MDH budget increases. The other change that finance adopted was at the end of the bill on page 6, the requirement as introduced, it would have been as of October 1 for any renewals. The amendment pushes the requirement back to April 1st, 2022 to give a little bit of a buffer from when the bill takes effect to those license renewals having the opportunity to find a training program that satisfies the requirements of the bill.
So how much does it cost?
Excuse me?
What's the cost?
The cost?
Yeah.
The cost is in fiscal 23, it's an increase of about 300,000, and then it grows slightly over time. But fiscal 2026, it's about 556,000.
Okay. Is there a motion? Any questions? All those in favor? Well, I guess it was easy, Senator. All right, let's go.
Chairman, the only thing I'd add is the full finance committee saw fit to amend themselves onto the bill, so I just mentioned that in case.
Would
anyone
anybody
was
like to be on the bill?
Yeah, West, Klaus.
Looks like the full Budget and Tax Committee would like to be on the bill too.
Add any B&T who aren't already on
Correct.
it? Okay.
All right, thank you all very much.